Hello, all. Welcome to another session of JavaScript. So, in the previous session, we have learned about some more facts about map. We have seen what is meant by set, and we have seen what is meant by weak map and weak set. So, in this session, let's focus upon three very important things. One is nothing but destructuring arrays and objects. Let's also try to understand this new object, inbuilt JavaScript object known as date and time, and also let's try to understand what does this given particular JSON and its methods are being actually used for. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's implement this as destructuring.js, des.js, or some des.js or some other thing. Let me rename instead of having capital word destructuring. Let's go ahead and let's try to understand what exactly this destructuring actually means. So the two most used, to be more precise, used data structure in JavaScript are: one is object, the other one is array. Let me cut it and paste it. The two most widely used data structures in JavaScript are object and array, where here object allows us to create a single entity that stores data and items by key, whereas on this part of arrays where this allows us to gather data items into an ordered list into an ordered list. However, when we pass these to a respective function as an arguments, we may not need all of it. So the function might only require a certain element specifically, or the function might only require certain elements or properties. So destructuring assignment, the thing that we are going to learn here, structuring, destructuring assignment is a special syntax where it allows us to unpack arrays or objects into bunch of variables instead of, I can say, variables, into bunch of variables, because destructuring also works with complex functions that have a lot of parameters like default values and so on. We'll soon see that given particular thing, but let's focus on the basic destructuring, or the fundamental or first destructuring format, which is known as array destructuring. So for example, to understand this given particular thing known as destructuring, as the word, it is telling that it unpacks the things. Destructuring, not structuring, but destructuring, which is nothing but it removes the structure. So it is nothing but if I say something like Nathan, if 1 2 3, for example, Nathan 1 2 3, and if you want to destructure an array, check how many elements are present in the array. Here we have two elements. So for that, let's create two variables. So I'll create a variable named as first name, and I'll try to create age. So it's 23. Age. Now I'll say something like ARR, R is equal to ARR. So here the first thing is the destructuring assignment. Here the first thing, the destructuring assignment, what it does is, whatever things that we are seeing in the first thing, here first name, will be taking up this first value inside array. Similarly, this new variable age, this will be picking up the second value in the array. So this is how the destructuring actually happens in the format of arrays. I'll say first name console.log age. If I run node dest.js, now I can clearly see the outputs are very clear. First name is a variable that is storing the value of Nathan, and second name is storing the value of age. Now after destructuring, let's check how does this array is storing. What does this ARR is now storing? I can clearly see the array is still available. So when you destructure it, do not think that this array will be vanished or this array will be broken. Here destructuring assignment, what it does, it picks the elements. Like for this first name, it picks the first value of the ARR. It picks the first value of ARR. For this age, it picks the second value of ARR, which is known as 23, and store the respective data here in the separate variables altogether. So here, let me comment it right now. Here, instead of accessing these Nitin and this respective data points 23, instead of doing it like ARR of 0, ARR of 1, instead of writing like this, I can say that these are completely different variables where I'm storing the days data, errors data into the respective variables altogether. So now we can work with variables instead of array members altogether. These are array members. So if you change, for example, if I say first name should be something like Shri, then again I'll say console.log your first name. Now wait a minute, instead of first name, I'll say ARR because we are changing this first name where this first name initially is storing the data that is present in the array, which is Nitin. If I change that thing, will it actually changes array or not? That's the question. So let me do it. Right. I can clearly see, if you can clearly observe, once the destructure happens here in this line, destructuring array. Once the destructure happens at this given particular point, now the thing is, once destructure happens, this variables will store these data points. Age will be storing 23, first name will be storing Nitin. Two data points in that array. Even though if you try to change the data that is present in the variable, then it doesn't impact the array. It doesn't impact the array. So destructuring doesn't mean destructive. It because it destructures it is here we are doing one simple thing. Copying this data into these variables. That is what meant by destructuring. That is what meant by destructuring. So instead of destructuring, we can also do this. Instead of destructuring, we can also this thing. They'll say let first name is equal to ARR of 0. We can do this thing. Second name, we'll say let age is equal to ARR of 2. Sorry, ARR of 1. We can still do this given particular thing. But instead of writing like this is the shortest way of doing it. This is also kind of a destructuring where we are copying the arrays data at a different position into different variables altogether. That's also destructuring. But here it is much more simpler way, a shorter way of doing it. A shorter way of doing it. So destructuring is always about not destructive, it is about shorter way of storing a given particular data from an array to a given particular variable. That's how this given particular thing. And another very important thing is if we have a comma like this, if we have a comma like this and we have some values like um, let's say we have Sandilia. Let's say we have Sandilia. Now in this given particular case, first name variable or in the first name variable, this first data will be copied into this given particular variable. But if you can clearly observe in the destructuring thing, here we have a empty gap. So ignore these elements using commas. So unwanted element, this is kind of an unwanted element of the given particular array can be thrown away by just comma. If you don't want to copy this thing into a separate variable, if you don't want to copy this thing into separate variable, have this space like this, have this space like this. Then this third one will be here. So let me do it. Let me even run the code. You'll see this first name is storing the value of Nitin and the age is storing the value of 23. So you don't want this middle one, Sandalia, to be stored inside any given particular variable. That's why I have kept this commas, unwanted elements. If this is an unwanted element that I don't want to copy it into any other variable, I'll be using this one simple thing. That's it. So even this destructuring, which we have did for arrays, will actually work with any iterable. We can work, or we can, here you have mentioned array destructuring, but or destructuring array. Let me keep it like this. This works with any iterable. This type of destructuring works with any iterable. Like set, we can do it for set map, any such kind of things. Set would be pretty straightforward because in set we only store values. We don't have key value pairs. So in set it is pretty straightforward. You can do it with even set. If you want me to do it, I'll do it. I'll say let a comma b comma c, which is actually equal to something like abc. ABC. So in A variable, this character will be stored. In B variable, this character will be stored. In C variable, this C or the last character will be stored. Or I can say let um I'll say 1, 2, 3 is equal to new set of 1 comma, oh wait a minute, 1 comma 2 comma 3. Right, 1 comma 2 comma 3. This is how this entire thing actually happens. We can do this kind of a destructuring. This is also destructuring. So I'll say destructuring with any variable or any iterable means where on that given particular data structure or on that given particular iterable we can run a loop. That's what it is meant for. That's what it is meant for. So this destructuring assignments, what are things that we are learning here? The first thing, destructuring assignment, that works because internally a destructuring assignment works by iterating over the right value. It's kind of a syntax, or this destructuring assignment, I can say this is kind of a sugar syntax sugar for calling per of loop, for calling per of loop over the value to the right of equal to the right of equal to, and assigning the values. This is how it actually works. This is how this actually works. Let's keep them commented. Now, so this is one such kind of a what I can say. This is one such kind of a destructuring thing. And another way of destructuring, we have this thing known as an rest parameter. Rest parameter, or instead of rest parameter, I can say rest, where it is represented with triple dots. So we have an operator, rest operator. Operator. I can say rest operator or some other thing. Rest operator or something. Now, if arrays, or if array is longer than the list of than the list at the left, the extra elements or the extra items will be omitted. For example, if I say let name 1 comma name 2, we have this given particular array like this. Sorry, I'll say like Nathan, like Shri, like Mark, like Sampath, like Kumar, any such kind of names. Now, according to this given particular syntax, Nitin will be stored inside the variable name 1. Sri, it will be copied and stored inside this given particular name 2 variable altogether. This is a general thing that happens. But what about these three remaining things? Mark, Sampath, and Kumar. They will be ignored. Instead, if you don't want them to be ignored, we can using this rest parameter. I'll say rest. I can say rest. This three dots, and I can say rest. I can simply say rest. Now, this three dots with this respect to thing rest, what does this thing actually does is, whatever remaining elements are, they all will be stored inside a new array, and that array will be stored inside this given particular rest variable, or that array's reference will be stored inside this rest variable. This is the correct way to do it. So if I say console.log name 1, console.log name 2, console.log rest. Let's rerun the code. Now you can clearly see name 1 is storing Nathan, name 2 variable is storing Sri, and rest is storing the remaining things Mark, Sampath, and Kumar in form of an array. So you can, if you say of 0, you will be accessing Mark. You'll see Mark. The third value is Mark, or the third result is exactly equal to the value of Mark. So this is what the rest parameter will actually do. So wait a minute. Let's comment it down. This is fine. So uh, instead of this given particular list, the major common doubt that comes here is, People will say, instead of, is it mandatory to use this thing as rest, or can I change it to something like titles or names? Can I do this kind of thing? Yes, we can do that thing. Yes, we can do that thing. But rest is standard thing. We can use anything. For example, if instead of, you say this is Nitin, this is, so instead of this, let's, if you felt like rest or this given particular variable feels awkward, if you want to change it, you can change it as names. This actually happens. This entire remaining things will be saved inside this names part altogether. That's how this thing actually works. This is all about this rest parameters, or sorry, rest operator altogether. Then we have also thing known as a default values. So what is meant by this respective thing known as a default value? Let's say if the array is shorter than the list of variables on the left hand side of the equal to operator or assignment operator, then there will be no errors. Then there will be no errors. For example, I'll say sorry, I'll say, no, first name. Where is this thing? Let me cover it up, and let me cover this thing too. So if I have this thing known as in first name, comma, I'll say surname. Hmm, why this first? Okay. Okay, sorry. I haven't finished the code yet. And if it has like this, where on the right hand side we don't have anything, but on the left hand side we have list of variables that are left. In this case, there will be no errors. So absent values are considered as undefined. So here we have an empty array. So if I say console.log first name, comma, surname, I'll be having undefined as both answers, or undefined will be stored inside both these respective variables. So there will be no such kind of an error. You'll see undefined and undefined. You'll see undefined and undefined. So there will be no errors. So if you want a default value to be replaced with undefined, mention it here. Mention it. Let's something like Nathan. If we have surname, it should be something like B. Then in such case, we have this thing known as in console.log first name, comma, console, not console, surname. So in this case, we have these default values that are present. If I run the code, sorry, you can clearly see first name is storing the value of Nathan, surname is storing the value of B, right? If you have values here, let's say if this have this thing, and if you have values for it, like Akhil case, if you have values this, then these default values will not be stored. You'll see. If we have values on the right hand side and we have variables on the left hand side to get copied, then whatever values that are right hand side will be placed here. But if you don't have values like this, if you don't have values like this, if you don't have values like this on the right hand side, then storing undefined, instead of storing undefined, we'll store default values. Store default values. Store default values. So that's how this entire thing actually works. So if we want a default value to replace the missing one, we can actually provide it using this equal to thing, is using this equal to thing. So default values can be more complex expressions, or this default value can be a function call. That can be a function call. They are evaluated only if the value is not provided. Only this value is not provided. That's what we can actually go ahead with. Now, this is about default values. Similarly, we have this thing known as an object destructuring. We have something known as object destructuring. Give me a minute. Right. Now let's see how can we do this respective thing known as an object destructuring altogether. So we have this um, um, we can actually follow this kind of a method. If you want to destructuring this array, on the left hand side also we are keeping them inside an array. We can also follow that thing. So for object destructuring also, it would be Similar to this, like let let's say var1 comma var2 is actually equal to var1, and we have some data, and var2, sorry, 2, we have some respective data altogether. Now we should have an existing object on the right hand side. This object should be present on the right hand side. Then we can split into variables, that we can split into respective variables. The left side only contains this left side. This only contains a object like pattern. This should be like a object looking like a pattern for corresponding properties. In the simplest case, we can have a list of variable names to be more precise. So for that, let me say let something like options is equal to title menu, and I'll say width 100, height 200. I'll say let say title, I'll say width, height should be from options, should be from this respect to options. Now what is the thing, right? When you are dealing with this respective key valued pairs for destructuring, remember these keys names should be matching with these respective names, should be matching with these respective names. So if I say console log title, console log width, console log height, I will see these things. Let's say if it is of heights, and if you want to check as heights, you see that here we have this third key value as height, but I try to destructure it into a different variable known as heights. So destructuring doesn't happen. So whatever key values are present here in the given particular object should be as same as these variable names, as same as these variable names. Oh, sorry. Yes. Now if you try, you'll see the values. You'll see the values. So here, whenever we have this given particular thing, we should be very careful. The order doesn't matter. And one another important thing is here I can say width, and I can say like this, because in the given particular thing we have title, width, and height. The order is in this format. But whenever we have title, height, width, the order is not matched. But still, the code works. But still, the code works. So one very important thing we need to understand when you are dealing with key pair values in that destructuring, these keys should match with these respective variable names that we tend to give. That the variable names that we tend to give. So the pattern that we are actually seeing on the left hand side may be more complex and specify the mapping between the properties and the variables. So it is more important that we take care about these things. If you want to assign a property, this this title property or this width property or this height property with another name, for instance, instead of title, I mean, just we have seen instead of height, if I want this variable to be heights, if I want to access or if I want to allot this height property value to this heights, then we have to set the variable name using colon. Then we have to set the variable name using colon. So I'll say height would be not height, but it's heights. Then it would be of heights. HAIGHT. This HAIGHT will check for this. But instead of calling this height, I just want to do it something like H. Instead of heights, let's call it as H. H. So I want this height property to assign its value for this new variable H. Now let's see. You'll see the values. You'll see the values. You'll see the values. If you don't do it, if you don't do it, if you don't say, if you say this, if you don't do it and try to mimic like this kind of a thing, Now we can clearly remember the last console log, which is what there is nothing stored inside the variable h. So destructuring doesn't happen because this property should know in which property it should paste copy its value. That's a fundamental thing. So for that, if you want me to do, if you want to do, you want to have these things. You want to have this thing like height for this given particular property. I want to store inside this variable known as h. That's how we actually do it. So this column, whatever column, the double dot that we are actually using, it shows what goes to where. So this height here, this value height will goes to this variable, new variable known as h. That's why we have mentioned it here. That's why we have mentioned it here. Similarly, if we have an empty object, let me uh, do it like it. Similarly, here we have empty object. Empty object. What will be these values? All of them are undefined. Instead of to avoid undefined, let's have these values. Title to be something like menu, height, sorry, height to be something like what's the height? 200, and width to be something like 100. Have some kind of a default values which we have already seen in the array destructuring. So I think height, height. This is how this destructuring of with the default values actually happen here. Even for default values, you can use complex expressions altogether. We can use complex expressions altogether. Even we can make this thing as colon h. We can name it as h. This still works. This still actually works. So if you have a complex object with many properties, we can extract only what we needed. This is another thing that I want to mention. Let's say it's not mandatory that for this given particular object, we have three properties. It's not always thing that we have to extract these three properties. We can remove these things. We can only have, or we can only deal with one simple thing. We can only deal with one simple thing. Like we can only extract this thing that exactly is required for us menu. Right? This is how this entire thing happens. The general object destruction happens in this format. Let me comment it down. We have this rest, which is triple dot. What if the object has more properties than, let's say, what if we have variables? For example, as we have seen the same case of rest parameter where here we might be having this entire thing. So let's say we have this thing. Let me use the same for this example. Now, if I say I only want title to be extracted, but remaining all thing, I just want to use this rest parameter and I'll say options. And if you say console.log this rest, you can clearly see this rest in the format of object. Whatever things that are left out, width and height, are created into an object, and that object is now being the variable known as rest. Now being the variable known as rest. So this is how this entire thing actually works. This is how this entire thing actually knows. So in all about the examples until now, what we have seen is we have structuring, destructuring that is present like this in a single line itself. In the single line itself. So we could use the existing variables without let. Let's say if you have existing variable, let's say instead of this, I'll write it as, we'll say let title, let width, height. We have it. And we can say title, height, width as option, click it. These things, sorry. These things. But one very important thing that we need to understand here. So let me cut this thing. Wait. Right. If you can clearly observe, if you try to do such kind of things, this kind of things, this is an error line. This is an error line. Why? Because the problem is that JavaScript treats these flower brackets on the left hand side in the main code flow, it doesn't consider it as another expression. It is some kind of a main code block that it should be executed. That it should be executed like the below. If I have something like msg is equal to hi, and it says something like console.log msg. So whenever your respective JavaScript sees something like this, flower braces, and in between flower braces we have something, it assumes it as separate entity altogether. Oh, sorry. We have this. So it assumes a code like this. But so that's why we get the error format here. So here on the left hand side, the JavaScript assumes that we have a code block, but it is not a code block. We are trying to destructuring it. It is not a code like this. It is like what we are trying to destructure it. So to show JavaScript that it's not a code block, we can wrap this entire thing in braces. We can wrap this entire thing in simple braces. Then simple braces. Wait, let me comment it. So when you're doing this thing where declaration happens and already declared variables to be used inside destructuring, then entire thing should be present in parenthesis, inside parenthesis. So that is as important as we should be caring about. So I think this is all about this respective thing known as in destructuring thing. Now um, let's go ahead and let's try to understand what is the other thing that are there. So for example here, yes, we have to see about this date and time object. Let's go ahead and let's try to understand and also understand what is JSON and its methods. Right, now let's understand this one inbuilt object known as date and time. So we have a new built-in object that has been given by the JavaScript sorry that has been given by the JavaScript environments altogether, which is known as date. So we have this object, inbuilt object known as date, not data but date. So what does this given particular date object does? For instance, we can store, create, modify the times, to measure the times, to do any kind of things with the times. So one very important thing we need to understand is, for instance, let's say to create a new date, to create a new date, to create a new date, I'll be saying this one thing. We has this constructor function named as date. So the arguments that we can pass it's into this respective date is insane. But without arguments, if you try to do it, let's say if I say let now is equal to new date of, I'll say console.log now. It gives me the details of current date. It gives me the details of current date. Right. This is how this entire thing actually work. So this thing, this now variable stores current date and time with milliseconds data altogether. Let's say if you have created something like this, I'll say let now is equal to new date of milliseconds. If I do such kind of things, this creates an object. Specifically, this creates a date object with time equals to milliseconds. Milliseconds. So date object will um, date object with time equal to number of milliseconds. MS stands for milliseconds passed after Jan 1st 1970 UTC standard. UTC plus, not TUC but UTC standard. This how this entire thing actually work. So if I say something like a number, if I say something like 0, let me say the example would be, if I say now is equal to new date of something like 0, not this but like this. If I say something like 0, this stores the data of something like Jan 1st, 1970. If I say something into, let's say now date is equal to new date of, it's not a new data. If I say 24 into um 3600 into 1000, this stores the date of Jan 2nd, 1970. 1970. So one very important thing we need to understand is here, this is nothing but we are trying to add 24 hours. We are trying to add 24 hours for this date. So this will give us the object with the respective date. So an integer number representing the number of milliseconds that has passed since. So what are integer that you are mentioning inside this brackets? This is representing number of milliseconds that passed since the beginning of Jan 1st, 1970. This is actually called time stamp. This is actually known as timestamp. So if you want to go before the date of Jan 1st, 1970, give something like negative symbol. Give something like a negative symbol. So we'll be going to December 31st, 1969. We can go to that given particular thing. We can even still do that kind of a thing. And we also have this thing now. Let's say new date can be, we can give date strings. We can send, let's say 2025 01 26. We can give this date strings. If there is a single argument, it's, and if it's a string, if this is a string, then this string is passed automatically. This string is passed automatically. So this, if I say now, if I say console.log dot of date, sorry, not date of like console log, you can clearly see this current date with the current. It's like when you do this data object returns this respect to 26 January 2025 with the time set as 12 o'clock, midnight 12 o'clock. That's what this given particular thing actually does. Similarly, we have this one thing where we can mention all of these things. We can mention year, we can mention month, date, hours, minutes, seconds, seconds, milliseconds. So here, year should start or should have four digits. Year should have four digits, 1998, 1997, some kind of thing. Month should be a single digit or not a single digit. To be more precise, January starts with the month number 0. December ends with the month number 11. Hours, or sorry, date. Date, it should be from 1 to 31. Respect to with this month. Respect to with this month. Even if this hours, minutes, seconds, and milliseconds, if these are absent, they are assumed to be 0. If these details in this respective date object are missed, then we have this respective thing known as an different object. Like they are considered as 0. They are considered as 0. So they are equal to the value of 0. If I say now is equal to new date where the year is 2026, month is 01, sorry, month is 0. 0 represents it's January 26. And if I don't mention any kind of hours, you will see, sorry, no, I haven't written a console log. Wait. Let me copy it. Let me copy this console log, paste it. Let me run it. You'll see it. You'll see it. The current time. This now is focusing on the current date. If I have this different date, I have this different date. That's it. That's it. If you want to keep it, we don't want this current timestamp that need to be mentioned if these are absent. Means if they want need to be absent, we need to mention as zeros. This is standard thing because I haven't mentioned what is meant by absent here. If you want hours, minutes, seconds to be not exactly accurate to this respective timeline, then you mention all zeros. When you mention zeros to this, then it represents that they are absent. So this is about date time object. Now, one important thing, because this is very huge thing that we can dig deep into. So we have different objects or different methods altogether. We have a method known as full get full year. We have this get month method. We can say now dot, I can say now dot, I can say if you want to use, I'll say now dot get full year. I can do this thing. These are methods. Similarly, we have get date, we have get hours, like get minutes, get seconds, get milliseconds. We also have this given particular get date, get hours, sorry, get minutes, get seconds, get um, milliseconds, all this kind of a thing, all this kind of a thing. So it's not a get year, it's get full year, it's get full year. Even you can have this thing like get day, get day, what day it is, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, some kind of a day. So the day number, it actually starts with 0. Sunday starts with 0, Saturday ends with 6, Saturday ends with 6. You can also have this thing known as get time. Whenever you want time, you can get this thing. You can say get time zone. These are time zone of set. We can get the respective times. We have such a different kind of things. Instead of get, we can also have this all things in set. Let me say, instead of get always get gives us the information. If you want to set the date, if you want to set the date, we have this thing known as set full year, set full month, set it, set date, set hours, set minutes, set seconds, set milliseconds, set day, set time zone of all of these things, all of these things. And another very important feature, that very handy feature for this given particular date object, is auto correction. When I can say we can set out of range values and it will be auto adjusted. For example, if I say nav is actually equal to new date of, and if I mention it something like 2025, 26, the month to be 10, which is nothing but, if it is 10 here, it is November. It is November. And in November, we have only 30 days. If I mention like this, if I console.log, if I console.log now, I can clearly see this thing. Because in November, we only have, sorry, in November, we only have 30 days. You'll see this output is auto corrected to 30, 11, 2026. This is how this auto correction will actually happen. So it is very good at maintaining this aspect to auto correction altogether. And another thing is, we can convert a date object to a number using unary plus. I can say something like let date is equal to new date, and I'll say console.log with unary plus. I can say date. Sorry, with unary plus, I can do this thing like this. This all data that you are seeing will be present in milliseconds. Will be present in milliseconds. The important side effect when we do this kind of things is dates can be subtracted. Dates can be subtracted, and the result is their difference in milliseconds. Let's say if I have two dates, if I have these two dates, I can subtract two dates. I can literally subtract two dates, and it works. And it works. And if we only want to have time, let me go it. If we only want to measure time, we don't need date object every time that need to be created. There is a special method known as date.now. I'll say let start is equal to date.now. We have this thing known as date.now, where this returns the current time stamps. So it's semantically equivalent to this entire thing is actually equal to date.now would be equal to new date of dot get time. So instead of writing this entire thing, we can simply replace it as date.now. That's it. That's it. So this is much more shorter format of doing things. And another important thing I just want to mention is there is this concept, very advanced concept. If you want to go ahead and you can learn, it's very interesting concept that to be read. There is this concept known as benchmarking when we are reading about this date and time. It's very interesting thing to read about. If you have, it's bit advanced. It's bit advanced. But if you are interested that you already have this entire JavaScript knowledge at a good pace, then you can go ahead and you can do that thing. You can understand about this benchmarking thing altogether. Now, similarly, we have this thing known as an date dot parse from a string. Let's say if you have a string like this, for example, we have year mentioned like this, and we have our month, and we have our date, and we have the time to visit in hours, sorry, and then in minutes, and then in seconds, and then in milliseconds. But it's not right, right. So SS represents seconds, but triple SZ actually represents milliseconds. So this entire thing, if you can clearly observe till this part, DDMMYY is the date, year, month, date, and we have this character between. There's this big character known as T, capital T. This capital T is used as delimiter, and we have HH for hours, MM for minutes, SS for seconds, and this S triple S, this just triple S is for milliseconds. But we have this given particular thing known as Z, capital Z at the end. This is an optional part that denotes time zone. This Z would mean, or if I say Z would mean UTC, I think it's plus zero. That's why this Z means time zone. This Z means time zone. The shorter variants are possible. You can only have this triple Y. We can only have this triple Y and the combination of month. The shorter notations are fast. Let's say if you have date, if you want me to show it, I'll say let um date. I'll simply say instead of date. I'll no, there's date already. Let's say MS. There's something like a variable known as MS, and if you want to say date parse, and you have the date like this 2012. This is an year, and 0124 with a T, and you have something like 13 51 50. So 13 hours, 51 minutes, 50 seconds, and you can also have something like 50.417 dash 07 of 0. So we have this given particular entire date time string in the form of string. Now this entire thing will be converted into date. So I'll say console.log. If I say ms, I can clearly see it is something like nan. Okay, wait a minute. Did I made any kind of a mistake? 2012 01 T 1356.427. I think 417. It's not 427. This 417. This is bit unnecessary thing. We can actually ignore it. It's not that required. Wait a minute. Date dot thing. Wait a minute. Why it is showing me this thing? Did I made any kind of a mistake? So 2012 01 24. It's completely fine. T the respective thing, and we can also mention thing. Okay. Did I make any mistake? Is this thing? Let's have this thing. Okay. Okay, I made a mistake. So here we can clearly observe the format is actually invalid. The format that I have mentioned is actually invalid. That's why I'm getting this nan. So instead of doing like this directly, the format that I have mentioned is right. So not wrong. So I need to say this and this. Right. I need to do this. We can instantly create a new date out of this given particular thing. So if this respect to format, I can say 50. Is this format correct? Wait a minute. No, this format is. Then I mentioned this. This is now it's fine. It is showing me that it's an invalid date. That's an invalid date altogether. Or let me remove these things. Okay, I don't want you to convert this thing into a date, but 50. I'll say let's have this 417 dash some extra calculations that I made. I made this seconds very brief. That's what I did. Now I got it. So I made this error here. I made an error here. Previously, my format was wrong, but now it's correct. Now it's the date it is telling me in the format of timestamp, which is nothing but in the form of milliseconds. So this is all about date time object altogether. Now, let's try to understand what is meant by JSON and what are the different JSON things that are present, JSON methods that are present. So let me say this thing, JSON. So let's say we have a very complex object and we would like to convert that complex object into a string and send it over a network. Or let's say we want to just to output it for some logging purpose. Naturally, if we have a complex object and if you want to convert that string, and such string should include all the important properties. So I'll say let user is equal to, sorry, user is equal to name. I'm not creating that complex, but I'm creating a normal object, age 23, for example. And let's say we have this thing known as toString. There is this method toString for us. I'll simply return. I'll say name here would be, I'll say this dot name. Okay, I haven't mentioned the braces here. Pardon. Uh, age is this dot age, this dot age. Now if I console dot log user. Now I have these things. We have this entire thing, the user. But in the process of development, as we start developing this basic object, we add more number of properties. More number of old properties will be renamed, moved, or removed. Updating such given particular properties. So this toString method, updating this, adding, checking for new properties, updating for old properties, renaming those old properties to new as a new properties. If they are removed, then in such given particular case, we could try out to loop over properties in it. But what if this object is too complex? Let's say here we have object is a simple object, but what if we have the object having an object inside it? If we have nested objects, object inside another object, then how do we helps us to convert it? Because this entire thing, this entire toString method, its purpose is to convert this entire properties into a string format. As long as this entire user is getting updated, to write this given particular function also will become cumbersome. So how do we deal with, even if this object goes to a next level and it became too complex? Let's say if it is tomorrow storing something like address, and it's itself is an object, and inside of it we have something like, you know door number, door dot number, or I'll say door, sorry, door number. We have some 1 2 3, and we have this street. We have something like abg. Now to convert these properties, because address is an important criteria for a user that needs to be converted into a string, then this entire function needs to be revamped, should be maintained. It's a very tough thing to do. So we could try to loop over all of these respective properties, like name, age, and address. But that option is also cumbersome. So luckily, to convert a complex object into a respective, more into form of string, we have methods. Now whatever things that we are assuming, that converting object into string is where comes to this point of JSON. The full form of JSON is Object Notation. JavaScript Object Notation. So this JSON format is actually used to represent values and object. Initially, it was made for JavaScript, but it has been popularized so well, it is beyond JavaScript now. Now coming back to this given particular thing, we have two different methods specifically for JSON. One is that we have JSON dot stringify. So JSON dot, it's a dot. JSON dot stringify. So what does this JSON dot stringify actually does? It convert objects to JSON. JSON dot parse. This converts JSON back to object. JSON back to object. Let's say I have all of these things. I'll just remove this method. I have all of these details. If I want to convert this entire object into a string, I'll simply say mm, console.log. I'll simply say JSON dot stringify and I'll mention like user. I'll mention the user where we convert this user object into JSON format. Now, if you can see, you can clearly see the output sees the entire object is now being converted into string format altogether. Now, if someone's, let me do it instead of this, I'll say let JSON is equal to this, and I'll simply mention console log JSON, and I also write console.log type of JSON. This is very interesting thing to understand. I can clearly see as here we are using stringify method, we are converting our entire object into a string. So the type would be string and this entire object, this entire stringify result will be stored inside this variable. That's why you can clearly see this all thing in the string. All your object is in simple string altogether. So this stringify method, it takes an object and convert it to string and convert it to string. Now, whatever result that this gives, whatever result that this given particular method gives, it is actually called as JSON encoded or JSON serialized or stringified or marshalled object. So the output from this is JSON encoded. We can call it as JSON encoded. We have different names: JSON encoded, JSON serialized. We have, I can say stringified. Stringified is also correct name, and marshalled, marshalled object. So we are ready to send this JSON encoded data over a network because this occupies very less space. This occupies a very less space because here object occupies very large space. But when you convert that object to a somewhat into string format, into primitive data type, it has more advantages. And yes, please note that whenever we have this JSON encoded object, this entire thing that you're seeing in the output, JSON encoded object, it's still an object, but it is present in the format of string. It is present in the format of string. It has several important difference from normal object literal. Normal object literal. This is different. This is JSON encoded object. This is normal object literal. So if you can clearly observe, string uses double quotes. You'll see this thing, string uses double quotes. String uses, and one primary difference I can say is in object literal, the keys are in normal. The keys are in normal. But in JSON encoded, the keys, if you can clearly see the name here, the age here, the address here, the door number and the street, all are present in double quotes. Right? So always remember strings uses double quotes, no single quotes or backticks in JSON. So in JSON, whenever you're seeing anything as a string, it will be in double quotes only. You can clearly see Nitin is a string here. It is used in double quotes. ABG, for example, it is a string and it is also using double quotes altogether. And object property names will also be double quoted. These are the two important differences that we can observe from our object normal, object literal, and we have this given particular entire JSON data. We have this entire JSON data. So this is how this entire thing JSON actually works. Similarly, if I ever wanted to convert, if I ever wanted to convert that JSON encoded object to normal thing, I'll say let converted or parsed JSON object. I'll simply say it like this. I'll say JSON.parse. JSON.parse, and we can simply mention this thing. So this JSON.parse will take this JSON encoded object and it will try to convert it into normal object back. We have this parse thing. Let's check whether this happens or not. Now you can clearly see previously when we have this thing, In the first line, we have JSON encoded object. Once you give the JSON encoded object to parse method, it will actually try to convert this JSON specifically into this format of normal object. You can clearly see the below output is normal object. So these are the two important methods that actually helps us to work with objects to send data over a network altogether. So this is super important concepts altogether. So yeah, that's it for this respective session. We'll meet in next session. We'll try to discuss about few other things that are very much important in order to build complex applications altogether. Thank you all and bye bye.